Good afternoon. Welcome to everybody here in Brussels, and also welcome to those joining us from Naples. Before I hand over to Wing Commander Mike Bracken in Naples for our operational update, I'd just like to give you an overview of what's happened over the past few days. Clearly, the main issue for NATO over the weekend and yesterday are the allegations of civilian casualties. Mike will provide more operational information, but it's important that we put those allegations in context of the NATO mission. Each and every civilian death is a tragedy. On Sunday, due to a technical failure, one of our weapons did not strike the intended military target, which was a missile site. We deeply regret this tragic accident. Speaking to the media yesterday, the Secretary General personally conveyed his condolences to the families of all those who may have been involved, and I would like to do that again today. Where NATO believes we have caused civilian casualties, we will say so, and we will do it as swiftly as we can establish the facts. The tragic accident in Tripoli is an exception. If you look at our track record, after over 4,000 strike sorties, you can see we have taken utmost care to avoid civilian casualties and will continue to do so. Our mission fully complies with United Nations Security Council Resolution 1973, and our mandate is to use all necessary means to prevent attacks and the threat of attack against civilians and civilian populated areas. We do not target specific individuals. Let's not lose sight of the fact that it is the Gaddafi regime which started this crisis, not NATO, not the international community. It is the Gaddafi regime who's deliberately and indiscriminately attacking civilians. It is the Gaddafi regime who has been deliberately and indiscriminately using tanks, guns and artillery against cities like Misrata and Zintan. It is the Gaddafi regime that has been deliberately and indiscriminately firing rockets from mosques and siting bunkers next to children's playgrounds. That is why we will keep up the pressure until our mission is accomplished, because if we stop, it will put countless more lives at risk. And with that, I'll hand over to Naples and Wing Commander Mike Bracken. Mike.
Thank you very much, Oana, and good afternoon, Brussels. Good afternoon to those who've joined us here in Naples. Since Friday, looking east to west across Libya, there has been little significant change in the operational situation, where pro- and anti-Gaddafi forces are engaged in fighting. In the east, in Benghazi, humanitarian aid is entering the city by air, sea and land, without any reported difficulties. There have been some skirmishes between Braga and Ashdabia, but there is no significant change in the overall picture, with pro-Gaddafi forces occupying defensive positions in Braga and the anti-Gaddafi forces located in Ashdabia. In Misrata, pro-Gaddafi forces on Sunday indiscriminately shelled civilian populated areas on the outskirts of the city. Unexploded ordnance located in and around the city remains a major concern, but the residents are receiving continuous support from international and non-government organizations. The port remains open, and humanitarian and shipments are frequently arriving. West of Misrata, near Daphnia, there is no significant change in the position of pro- and anti-Gaddafi forces. Skirmishes continue, and we know that pro-Gaddafi forces have been actively engaged in shelling the anti-Gaddafi positions. With regard to the western coastline, again, there has been no significant change in the situation, though it appears that attempted uprisings by local residents in Az-Zawiya have been suppressed by the pro-Gaddafi forces. In the west and in the Berber Highlands, there has been fighting in and around Nalut, but the anti-Gaddafi forces are holding their position and taking ground. Overall, pro-Gaddafi forces have been pushed further into the mountains. Around 30 humanitarian assistance organizations are now operating in the Berber Highland region, providing people with basic necessities such as food, water, shelter, and medical supplies. This is an increase from virtually no humanitarian presence at the beginning of May and is a very encouraging sign. In Tripoli, NATO continues to target command and control nodes and other sites involved in the coordination or logistical supply of pro-Gaddafi forces, which are actively engaged in threatening or harming the civilian population. Today, I would like to focus and clarify 3 separate incidents relating to NATO airstrikes conducted between last Friday and the early hours of Monday morning. I'd like to reiterate the facts of these 3, and as I said, separate events. Firstly, the strike on Friday in the area of Bracken. NATO can confirm that on Friday in the area of Bracken, NATO hit a column of military vehicles which was observed in the area where Gaddafi forces had recently been operating. In a particularly complex and fluid battle scenario, these vehicles were assessed as a threat to civilians and were engaged by NATO aircraft. NATO subsequently confirmed that the vehicles that were hit were part of an opposition patrol. We regret any injuries caused by this unfortunate incident. That's the first incident and was on Friday, the 17th of June. The second incident on Sunday morning involved a weapon malfunction which reportedly caused civilian casualties. On Sunday morning, the 19th of June, we targeted a military missile site in Tripoli with a number of precision-guided weapons. Our review of the strike had indicated that during the course of the airstrike on the missile site, a potential weapons system failure occurred, and this caused the weapon not to hit the intended target and reportedly resulted in a number of civilian casualties. We can still not confirm that the site where our weapon landed was in fact the site that was shown on the media, but the site is very likely to be that failed weapon and is likely to have been caused by that weapon's malfunction. NATO regrets the loss of innocent civilians, and we continue to take great care in planning and conducting our airstrikes. The third incident is the NATO strike yesterday on June the 20th on a command and control node in Simone, which is west of Tripoli. In the early hours of Monday morning, NATO carried out a precision strike using precision-guided weapons on a highly significant command and control node in the Simone area near Zawiya. The facility was directly involved in coordinating systematic attacks on the Libyan people and was identified through rigorous analysis based on persistent intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, and this was carried out over a prolonged period of time. NATO is aware of allegations that this strike caused casualties. That is something we cannot independently verify, but I say again, this was a legitimate military target, a high-value command and control node used to coordinate attacks against civilians. We observed the site over a prolonged period of time before conducting the precision strike, which minimized any potential risk of causing unnecessary casualties. Slide, please. Okay, this slide shows the area where we were taking this command and control strike. On the left-hand side, you can see in amongst what looks like the trees, the rubble of a command and control center. To the right and to the top, you can see a very significant large mosque. Just south of that mosque, there is an area where you can see an aerial tower, and that was the communications facility, built and placed directly next to a mosque. Just south of that, you can see the school. This is a local school for children, right in amongst this area. The target that we hit was a command and control node. This picture clearly shows a building. On top of that building, which you saw in the previous slide, are a number of white dots. Those 17 dots are satellite dishes, some of which are approximately 3 meters wide. I ask, how many buildings require 17 satellite dishes if they're not a command and control communications facility? This slide shows that same area after NATO strikes. It is no longer a command and control center. Okay, following our strike on the communications facility, right next to the aerial, you can see there was no damage caused anywhere near the mosque or the school. Precision-guided weapons were used to take out a command and control node, a high-value target which needed to be removed from the battle space. NATO used precision weapons to carry out this strike. I'd like to go back to this slide so you can see it in perspective. The mosque is to the right. Just below is the communications facility. To the left, and in amongst what looks like the trees, are the command and control nodes which were removed by NATO strikes. Okay, I hope that clarifies the three separate incidents. One was a very unfortunate strike, which we refer to as blue on green. The next was a situation where a missile or weapon had a weapons system failure. The third was a clear strike by NATO on a command and control center. Finally, I have news on some reports received this morning. At 07:20 Zulu hours, or Greenwich Mean Time, NATO received reports that an unmanned, autonomous helicopter drone used by NATO forces lost radar contact with the command center. This drone helicopter, unmanned, was performing intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance over Libya to monitor pro-Gaddafi forces threatening the civilian population. We are currently looking into the reasons behind this incident. What I can say is NATO confirms that it has not lost any attack helicopters during Operation Unified Protector. More information will be provided on this incident as it becomes available. NATO forces continue to use all necessary measures to protect civilians. These measures include the use of attack helicopters and precision-guided weapons launched from fighter aircraft. And we continue to use information surveillance reconnaissance or intelligence surveillance reconnaissance drones to build up our knowledge base, along with all other information sources available to us to fuse them for the commander's use. We have flown nearly 12,000 sorties, of which 4,500 are strike sorties, with bombs hitting their intended targets with a very high degree of accuracy. The skies over Libya are well protected and the no-fly zone is being enforced. In sum, NATO is committed to its mandate to protect the civilian population of Libya. We will continue to enforce the arms embargo. We will continue to enforce the no-fly zone. NATO will continue to legitimately strike targets for maximum military effect, including command and control nodes, military equipment, and ammunition storage sites. We will stay the course, and we will continue with the mission until the Gaddafi regime verifiably ends the violence and opposition against the people of Libya. Thank you very much.